I wonder if you've ever known that feeling that comes from finishing something that you've invested in for years. The heartache, the hours of sweat and tears given for a goal. The mountains climbed, the valleys traversed, the hurdles jumped, persevering through doubts, fears and discouragement. And finally you've reached the last moments, fulfilled the task, completed the mission for which you'd set out to achieve. Now I wonder if you can imagine what it would feel like if something that you completed actually for the ultimate benefit of others, but that no one noticed, cared for, or really understood. Or worse yet, having finished, having fulfilled your life's purpose, you were judged and derided, labelled a failure and a disgrace. As we reflect on the Gospels and all the events that they record about Jesus' life and his active ministry, the dramas, the miracles, Jesus' utter goodness and his wisdom, the divine revelation of character, the boldness and humility and radical life of holiness that Jesus had brought to all who encountered him. For some it inspired obedience, for others scorn. As we think upon all of that, nothing really compares to the intensity of the last week of Jesus' life. Indeed, most of the Gospel writers dedicate a third or more of their accounts of Jesus' entire ministry to this final single week. From Gethsemane to Golgotha, to the grave, to glory. In his last week, Jesus had experienced fever-pitched praise and adoration from the hopeful masses, albeit fickle and short-lived. He had angrily challenged the corrupt systems betraying the vulnerable and dishonoring God. He exposed hypocrisy and prophesied eschatological hope on a mountaintop. He withdrew and spent time with close friends at Bethany, wrestled agonizingly with every part of his being to embrace the will of Abba in a garden, communed with and served his followers of faith in the upper room, subjected himself to outrageously unjust judgment, persecution, torment and pain for the salvation of all his very accusers, all of his deserters, all of humanity, salvation for then, before, now and always. Salvation for you, me, all of us. Where his disciples chose self-preservation in the face of danger, Jesus, innocent yet condemned, embraced self-sacrifice. He died a shameful and torturous death. In the moments just before he died, Mark records that Jesus called out with a loud cry. At the pinnacle of exhaustion and pain, Jesus mustered whatever oxygen and strength that he had as he expelled his last words. Last words. Often when we communicate, they say it's what you say first and what you say last that really matters. Last words have power and significance. Of all the recorded life-changing words that Jesus had uttered up until this point, what would his last words be? Jesus' last words, the last thing he would say before his death. Tetelestai, it is finished. This was recorded only twice in John here and never again in the New Testament. One word in the Greek captured in 3 words of ours, it is finished. This cry was not a desperate plea of resignation, but an affirmation, a declaration of divine inclination. If we contrast John's intent here in his gospel account with that of Luke's, Jesus is not so much committing his spirit into his Father's hands, but handing his spirit over to humanity. He isn't so much giving up or relinquishing his spirit, but handing it over. The gift of the Spirit was active at the time of the cross. What was to come in all its fullness at Pentecost was being revealed and released even now. You may have heard a phrase that says, when one door closes, another opens. It is finished. One door was closing in a sense, but the wind of the Spirit was thrusting another open. This was not a cry of defeat, but of victory, a cry of fulfillment. Jesus didn't say he was finished. Jesus says it is finished. The mission to redeem humanity was fulfilled. The good news had been proclaimed. The truest revelation of God's authentic holiness and love had been laid bare for all to see. Captives were freed, blind eyes made to see, the lame to walk, the mute to speak, the deaf to hear. The mission of choosing and equipping the followers had been accomplished. The sacrifice had been made. The sting of death had been removed. Friends, the cross precipitated the resurrection. This moment was catalytic to all that was to come. It inevitably set in motion the resurrection to follow. It is finished. The unstoppable floodgates of life had been released through the gateway of sacrifice. The disunity, the broken relationship between God and humanity since the fall was now healed, restored, reconciled. All sin, all evil, all separation was conquered. The cross was the place where the serpent struck the heel of Jesus, but more assuredly, it is where Jesus crushed the serpent's head. Jesus bore the curse to reverse the curse. On the cross, Jesus changed everything, for everyone, forever. It is finished, now, then, forever. This declaration was given in a moment in time, but it is an ongoing reality. It is perpetually being fulfilled. Of recent days, we've been watching a little bit of Netflix, and one of my wife's favourite programs is Anne with an E. It's kind of a new take on Anne of Green Gables, and it's set in Canada a number of years ago, a long time ago really. And in the story, they go to the local store and they often purchase things and they put it on their tab, on their account. And they pay it off every so often when the tab builds up in the account and the debt gets too much. This isn't so much a practice these days in larger communities where we go down to a local store. We don't really have the opportunity to have a tab and be really familiar with the local store owner. However, in recent days, people do engage in this thing called paying it forward, a process whereby you pay for something that has yet to have even occurred. You pay in advance so that someone else doesn't have to pay. Friends, when we think of the cross, Jesus had acquitted the past and paid it forward forever. Tetelestai means the debt is paid in full and that there will never have to be a payment ever again. It's like Jesus has signed an open check of never-ending salvation. Whatever we've done, whatever we are doing, whatever we will do, Jesus says it is finished. Whatever we struggle with, Jesus says it is finished. However we fail God and others, Jesus says it is finished. Whatever shame, doubts, worry, guilt, pain, loneliness, fear, anger, hurt, resentment that you may feel, Jesus says it is finished. However we strive for love and acceptance or success and acknowledgement, Jesus says it is finished. Tetelestai, the price has been paid in full, perpetually. Tetelestai, nothing can ever separate you from the love of God ever again. It is finished.